Salut, bonjour, hello year 11, Mr. Calvert here as usual. I say usual only because I've made a lot of these videos in the last few days. This one is looking at contrasting connectives for the AQA GCSE French and listening and reading exams. What we're going to think about is that this is something that you need to be able to do in terms of obviously understanding the words and their meaning, but then also being able to appreciate and identify how they alter the words that and phrases actually that appear around them. What we are going to look at is two things, and I've actually just lumped them together into one. So we're going to look at just the vocab itself of these words, what they mean, and all of that kind of thing, and also then how they might be put together in exam questions, so how the examiner might try to use them to really test you. The main message then, headline thing, the majority of the phrases that we're going to see here cancel out the thing or the things that have already been mentioned or get mentioned afterwards. So if we think of it from the perspective of the reading, you've obviously got more time because you don't have that pressure that you've got in the listening, because you can read the thing and you can go backwards and forwards as much as you want. That's a massive skill that you need to be able to employ, to be able to look ahead, look backwards, and then make a decision on how everything relates to each other. The listening is much more difficult because obviously you will only hear it twice, you've got that time pressure against you, but you need to be trying to pick out these words because they really can push you and guide you in the direction that you need to be able to get the answer. I'm going to say this is a bit of a punt, and it does tend to be the case. The things that come before or after these phrases are usually the answer to your question, usually. Obviously, I can't say that with 100% certainty, but generally speaking, they are the answer to the question that you need. And that's a really important thing. So, as we've said before, I've used this wonderful little picture. If you get a question where it's asking you to identify positive, negative, or positive and negative, again, with some degree of certainty, if you hear any of these words, it doesn't matter if you understand any of the other stuff, just get down P and N as your answer, because that is what the answer is. That's what it's getting at. So any of these words, malgré, malgré ça, mais, cependant, toutefois, pourtant, malheureusement, heureusement, au contraire, par contre, any of those, poof, P and N, get it written down, take a breather and get ready for the next question if it's in the listening in particular. Okay? So, vocab, first of all, just going to whiz through these. What I'm going to ask you to do, actually, probably should have asked you to do this on other things, is take a pause now, use this as a revision. Which of these do you know? Remembering that at this point, for listening and reading, you only need to be able to recognise them. Okay, so pause the video now and get a little piece of paper, even just read them through in your head. It's entirely up to you. Do you know what these mean? And then we'll look at the answers together. Great. So I think we know the majority of these really well. So malgré, malgré ça, we will say just for this, in spite of, or you can say despite. So in spite of or despite, I'm just going to write in spite of there. Mais, year 7 classic, but, cependant, another year 7 classic, however. And then actually for toutefois and pourtant, we are just taking those as however as well. Another little pair here, so malheureusement, unfortunately, one that you know really well. However, its little cousin, if you like, heureusement, so we've dropped off that mal, does mean just fortunately, and as we'll see later on, this is getting used, or has been used a lot more frequently in exams, so it's one worth watching out for. Again, you know this well, donc means so, but in the sense of therefore, as a bit of a cause and effect thing. It's raining, so I'm going to stay at home. This one's maybe a new one, but I think you probably work it out. These two actually are newish. Contrairement à, and then au contraire. They both just mean like on the contrary, so the opposite of anything. So on the contrary. And similarly here we've actually on par contre, you know this well from year 11, year 11, year 7, we've got this contre running through, and anything that's counter in English goes against what the norm is, if you like. So that's just something worth keeping in mind. So par contre, you've learnt this from year 7 as meaning on the other hand. You could say conversely, actually, if you wanted to. Conversely, it's quite nice. On the other hand. Personal little favourite here, this comes up a lot, de l'autre côté. A côté, and côté is literally a side of something. And autre, as we know, means other. So literally this is on the other side, but again it really is just meaning on the other hand. De l'autre côté. Moving down, again we know this one fairly well. Sauf means except. And sans is without. Nice one here, au lieu de. Some of you use this quite nicely in your writing. Instead of. Oh, I've written instead without an A. That was for you, Luke. Instead of. And then à part ça is actually quite close to what it looks like. Apart from. Super. So check those against what you thought they were. If not, do a little bit. Take this as your point to focus in. And think, yeah, I don't really know that one, I'm not really sure of it. If I'm going to be really brutally honest, the most important things I think to pick out are the malgré, malgré ça, watch out for heureusement, sauf, sans, and au lieu de. All of them are important, they really, really are, but those are the real ones that can throw you off. So we're going to look at each one individually, which is the approach that I think is quite helpful. And we're going to start with malgré or malgré ça. I'm going to be quite repetitive here because so many of these, they cancel out the thing that has been said previously or subsequently. But this is a real classic one for higher listening. We had it in the mocks that we did in March time, and we've seen it lots and lots. So generally what happens is something has been mentioned in a positive way or a negative way, or giving you one piece of information. The little malgré jumps in and cancels it out. So the first sentence we've got here is talking about school. In this instance, the malgré is appearing in the middle of the sentence. So ce que je ne peux pas supporter au collège, c'est l'anglais, malgré mes bonnes notes. So what I can't stand at school is English, in spite of my good grades. And what this is then meaning in terms of the question is that you've got a bit more complexity here, because this person can't stand English, but nonetheless they're good at it. So the question may be something along the lines of, is this person good at, this person is good at which subject? This person has good results in whatever, and the malgré is the thing that's balancing it out. What tends to happen, and I said this on a previous video, and this applies to all of the words in this video, you take the first bit, particularly in the listening, you take the first bit that you hear. So you would hear, je ne peux pas supporter anglais, right, can't stand English, that's it, gotta be negative, job done. Whereas actually here, there's a positive aspect to it as well, because even though they don't like it, they still have good marks and good grades in it. So you need to just take that little bit of detail and wait for that and pick up on that as well. Don't just discredit it. This second option, so this is from technology. This one, the malgré, comes at the beginning. This happens quite commonly as well. So malgré les grands dangers, so in spite or despite of big dangers or major dangers, je m'en sers souvent des réseaux sociaux. So in spite of the dangers, I make use of social media very often. So this is putting in, again, a double-edged thing, that this person understands that there is some negative aspects to it, but in spite of that, they still choose to use social media for whatever reason. Again, being quite repetitive here. I didn't put any colours in these sentences, but never mind. Cependant, toutefois, pourtant, all three of these things mean the same thing, but really watch out for the toutefois and the pourtant, because you probably, I'm being honest, you don't know these as well as cependant. I think you know them-ish, but these will be the ones that you probably aren't as confident with. And here I am for the 50th time already. They cancel out what either comes before or comes after them. So, first one here about holidays. D'habitude, nous visitons la plage chaque été. Cependant, cet été, on va à la montagne. So again, you're there, you're in the exam, particularly listening exam. Where do they go on holiday? One of the options is going to be the beach. You're sitting there, the woman goes, question 12, and the beep happens, boop, and you hear, d'habitude, nous visitons la plage. Oof, I've heard the word for beach, job done. B is the answer. Where's the next question? Oof. However, that is now cancelled this out, so the beach is now irrelevant because this summer, cet été, on va à la montagne. So they're actually going to the mountains. Watch out for it. Another thing that happens, this is one here, is when multiple things are mentioned, the however word can switch around what someone's plans may be. I've put here the future because that is often where they use it, but it can change a sequence of events as well, just in general. So here, à l'avenir, j'ai l'intention d'aller à la fac avant de trouver un emploi. Pourtant, je vais trouver un petit job pendant mes études. So in this instance, we've got the person saying what they want, what they intend to do in the future. So they want to go to university before they find a job. So one of the options might be this person doesn't want to find a job, and you've gone, well, right, okay, they want to go to uni before they find a job. They don't want to get a job. You put that as your answer, you're all happy, and you're ready to move on to the next question. Guess what? Surprise, surprise, we've got however just popping up there, and actually what they're saying is they are going to find un petit job. We know that really well, literally a little job, a part-time job, pendant mes études, during their studies. So in spite of going to university and saying they don't want to find a job, they're accepting that, you know what, I probably would need a part-time job while I'm at uni just to get a bit of extra cash. So a lot going on there, but again, the however word is adding in some extra information that is either cancelling out, it's cancelling out things that have come before or things that come after. So really watch out for that. Next up, same thing here, the cancelling out other stuff. However, what I want you to listen out for and watch for, and this has come from Miss Siddle, so thanks to Miss Siddle for this, because she spotted this in a foundation question that she'd done with her class. The malheureusement is really obvious. It's a long word. If it's in the listening, it really stands out. But what Miss Siddle noticed is that they are using heureusement a lot more than malheureusement. So in this case, what could happen is they put a negative aspect in first, so something negative, blah, 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 but fortunately, because what we're used to seeing is something positive that's then cancelled out by the unfortunately part, whereas, as I say, thanks to Miss Siddle for this, and it may come up again, we never know, heureusement is being used to do the opposite. So they say something negative, introduce heureusement, which then turns the negative on its head, completely on its head. Two little examples here. So we've got grâce, this is about holidays and travel. Grâce au prix réduit de billets d'avion, plus de gens peuvent voyager à l'étranger. Mais, so we've got a mais there as well, and malheureusement. Mais malheureusement, c'est encore trop cher pour plusieurs personnes. So we're starting off with something really positive. Thanks to reduced ticket prices, plane ticket prices, more people can travel abroad, but unfortunately, it's still too expensive for many people. Next one here, Céline. Where do I have picked that? Céline veut continuer ses études en histoire à la fac, mais elle s'intéresse à prendre une année sabbatique également. So Céline wants to continue her studies in history at university, but she's interested in taking a gap year as well, or equally. Heureusement, elle peut faire tous les deux. So again, if you just got that far and thought, all right, well, not really sure what's getting at because she wants to do history, but she wants to have a gap year, we've got the heureusement here that's saying, well, fortunately, elle peut faire tous les deux. She can do both of those options. So the fortunately is giving a different spin on it, a different take on what could be done. Okay, donc. I think this is quite good in listening because it's easy to hear and it stands out quite a lot, donc. What it is mostly used for is introducing a bit of a result, like a cause and effect to things. So something's being previously mentioned, donc, whatever the finishing part is. Again, I can't say this with 100%, but this is often the answer to the question that you need. So here's an example here from Social Issues. So, on voit plusieurs gens qui dorment dans la rue, dans chaque ville de la région. Donc, il faut leur donner des vêtements et notre soutien. So, we can see many people who sleep in the streets in every town of the region. So, it's necessary to give them clothes and our support. Keeping an eye on donc, because often that bit that follows is the bit that you need. Again, it's easy to jump in with the first thing that you see or the first thing that you hear, but hold on, wait, and when you hear donc, or malheureusement, or cependant, or toutefois, malgré, then that is often the bit that you need. The bit that comes with that is often the bit that's the answer to the question. Zipping across, so not much. I don't really have much to add to this other than what these phrases do. They're all very, very similar. Is they just add in a different aspect, a different viewpoint, a different piece of information that plays off against the other thing. So just watch out for those. And again, often the bit that is connected with this is the bit that you need for the answer. So just watch out for that. Right, absolute wonderful, really well-known GCSE French word, sauf, but actually really useful word. Comes up loads and loads in life, and if you're in France, sauf, you see it on signs, you see it on things in shops. It's a really, really important little word. The problem here is, and we're going to see the same thing with the next one, is it often gets, because it's quite short, I use the phrase swallowed up by other things. So when it appears in a longer piece of speech, it can often be lost and you don't really hear it. What sauf tends to do is it removes an option, or actually some options, it may be more than one option, from a selection of choices. So you'll have this, this and this, except this, or except this other thing. So two examples here, one from school. So nous nous intéressons à toutes les matières sauf le PS. So we're interested in every subject apart from PE. This one, this is a bit of a double E thing. So you've got two separate sentences, and the sauf on two levels relates back to the first thing that's mentioned, but also then directly to the thing that follows it. So we've got on recycle plein de produits. So you can recycle many products. We recycle many products. Au centre de recyclage, on peut recycler tout sauf le verre. Now, this in itself is another important word, tout. This means everything in this context. So at the recycling centre, you can recycle everything sauf le verre, except glass. I mean, what a rubbish recycling centre, but who knows. So tout is often one to watch out for alongside sauf, so you can do everything apart from whatever this thing is. The other thing to watch out with sauf is it is very, very frequently used with days of the week. And particularly this little phrase, I'm calling it a killer phrase, un jour férié. Un jour férié. That means a bank holiday. So you sometimes get a question, particularly in the listening, where it's like you hear this announcement in the supermarket and you have to identify what it says, and it says le magasin est ouvert tous les jours sauf les jours fériés. So shops open every day apart from bank holiday. So watch out for that one. Again, days of the week can be like le magasin. It's often with shops. Le magasin est ouvert tous les jours sauf le dimanche, except Sunday, or sauf le vendredi soir, Friday night. All these kind of things. So days of the week, times of day, stuff like that. Okay, so sans works very similar in terms, well, it's very similar to sauf in the first way, that particularly in the listening, it can get lost by the words because it's short. It's also very nasal, so the sound is happening around that bridge area of your nose. Sans, sans, and it sounds like an en, so it could be en. It can really easily be lost. In terms of how it works, very, very similar to sauf, in that it removes an option or a couple of options from a selection of other things. So we've got one here, on s'entend bien dans ma famille, surtout sans mon frère quand il est au travail. So we get on well in my family, especially without my brother when he is at work. So the extra detail there is that obviously the brother causes some kind of issues with the family relations, but generally they get on pretty well. So the question may be, does the family get on well all the time, true or false? And actually it's false, because the suggestion there is the brother brings in some kind of negative aspect. Next one, je mange tout. This is from food. Je mange tout. So we've got that little tout again that we saw earlier. So I eat everything. En ce qui concerne la nourriture. So I eat everything as far as food is concerned. Mais seulement les produits sans lait. So I eat everything as far as food is concerned, but this person only has products or things that are without milk. So I'm guessing they've got some kind of dairy allergy or something like that. So again, just watching out for that. It's adding in just actually quite a nuanced detail with this. The same with sauf, a small little detail that often changes the meaning of things quite differently, quite considerably. So the bottom one here, this person actually doesn't eat everything because they don't eat things that have got milk in them. So you need to watch out for that. If we skip on, we're getting towards the end, we're doing really well. This is a really common exam phrase, and some of you use this quite nicely actually in your work as well. So this describes something which is going to just completely replace or change another thing, so it's almost kicking out a different option. So one here from like hobbies and free time. Les garçons préfèrent aller à la pêche au lieu de rester chez eux. So the boys prefer to, I should have done les mecs, shouldn't I? Les garçons préfèrent aller, so the boys prefer to go fishing instead of staying at home. And then one from environment, il faut réduire les gaz d'échappement au lieu de recycler les produits en plastique. So it's necessary to reduce greenhouse gases instead of recycling plastic products. So it's saying one option is more important than the other. Just watch out as well. I think I've just realised I should have put an example in for this. The de sometimes might become d apostrophe. So we could have done here, au lieu d'aller à la pêche. So let's flip that on its side. Les garçons préfèrent rester chez eux au lieu d'aller à la pêche. Sometimes that might change the way that you hear it, particularly in the listening. And a one little warning thing here. This comes up quite surprisingly as well. There's a separate phrase, avoir lieu. The word lieu actually means place. It means in place of. Au lieu de is literally in place of, in the place of. So, les garçons préfèrent aller à la pêche au lieu de rester chez eux. The boys prefer to go fishing in the place of staying at home. Obviously in English we'd say instead of. There is a separate phrase, avoir lieu. This means to take place. So if you see lieu, or hear lieu, and it has a date or a time or something, it's meaning that event takes place. So the example I've done here, la fête aura lieu le 31 mai. So the party will take place on the 31st of May. So just watch out for that one, because it's a slight twist on this with a very different meaning. Very, very different meaning. They do say in English, I think I've told you this before, a lieu day. It probably means nothing to you because you don't work, but in some jobs you can get a lieu day, which is a day off that isn't really a day's holiday. It's just a day that you might take as a bit of an emergency or something, and it's a day off in place of another day, so you have a day off in lieu. Obviously, really bad pronunciation of the French. Moving on to the last little section then. This is a tough one for listening because it doesn't sound anything like it looks. If you see it written down, the first bit looks like à part. So à part ça. So this little phrase, it introduces something which is separate to a list or a group of other things that have been mentioned. So this is quite a long example from holidays. So on va régulièrement en vacances en hiver, où on fait un nombre de sports extrêmes comme le skeleton, mais à part ça, ce genre de vacances ne me plaît pas beaucoup. So they've done this huge blurby bit here that has started there has gone on all the way to here, talking about winter holidays, extreme sports, the skeletons, that crazy thing like a bobsleigh where you rely on like a little, sort of like a tray, and they go down the luge chute. All this stuff, talking about holidays, but then they've thrown in, à part ça, actually this type of holiday doesn't really please them. They don't really like this holiday at all. So you've gone through all of this stuff, and actually it's then introduced a really negative opinion about this thing. So be prepared for that it might have positives, but apart from that, I don't like it. Last little thing just to finish us up, if we swing back to this, remember the key thing here is that these phrases cancel out other things that are mentioned either before or after, or they have some kind of influence, or they present some kind of change to the vocab that comes either side of them. Remember as well, and I'm putting this as usually, it's not always the case, and we'll look at this more in booster sessions as well, the phrase or the things that come directly before or after them, usually after them actually, a lot of the time the answer to the question that you need. So listen out and look out for these words, then make your decision of what your answer is. Okay? Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.